The night was alive with whispers, the wind carrying the scent of damp earth and iron. Beneath the swollen moon, the trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky. And in the heart of the blackthorn forest, something primal stirred. Kieran moved like a shadow given form, his massive frame cutting through the underbrush without sound. Fur rippled beneath his skin, the beast inside him restless, hungry. He was a creature of teeth and thunder, a werewolf who had long since surrendered to the wilderness in his blood. But tonight was different. There was a new scent in the air, rich, intoxicating like dark wine and frost-kissed roses. It coiled around him, pulling at his instincts, making his pulse hammer. A predator's scent, a vampire. He followed it, his golden eyes burning through the dark. The forest thinned, giving way to a clearing bathed in silver light. And there, standing atop the ruins of a forgotten altar, was her, Seraphina. She was elegance carved from night itself, her pale skin luminous under the moon, her dark hair cascading like spilled ink. Her lips, red as a fresh wound, curved into a smirk as she turned to face him. "Well," she mused, her voice a velvet blade. "Aren't you a bold one?" Kieran's growl rumbled deep in his chest, his muscles tensing. She didn't fear him. That alone was a provocation. She tilted her head, studying him with eyes like polished rubies. "I heard stories about you, the feral wolf who howls at the moon and leaves only bones behind." Her smile sharpened. "Yet here you are, staring at me like a lost pup." A snarl ripped from his throat. He took a step forward, claws flexing. She didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed, a sound like shattered glass and honey. "Oh, don't look so offended. I'm only teasing." Her gaze raked over him, slow, deliberate. "Though, you're rather shy for a monster, aren't you?" His control frayed. In a flash, he closed the distance between them, his body caging hers against the stone. The air between them burned. Her scent flooded his senses, dizzying, maddening. She didn't struggle, didn't even blink. Her breath ghosted over his jaw as she whispered, "Still, you're not my type." Something inside him snapped. His hand shot out, gripping her waist, yanking her against him. Her gasp was swallowed by the night. For the first time, he saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Good." "Shy." His voice was rough, barely human. "You want me to prove you wrong." Her lips parted, fangs glinting. "Maybe I do." The challenge hummed between them, thick as smoke. His blood roared, the beast demanding he take, claim, devour. But then, a distant howl shattered the moment. His pack. Seraphina's smirk returned, though her chest rose and fell just a little too fast. "Dubical's wolf." She pressed a single cool finger to his lips. "Run along now." He should have left, should have vanished into the trees. But as he turned, he cast her one last look over his shoulder, his voice a dark promise. "This isn't over." Her laughter followed him into the shadows. And the hunt began. The city's underbelly pulsed with shadows, its narrow streets slick with rain and secrets. Neon signs flickered like dying stars, casting jagged reflections in the puddles underfoot. Seraphina moved through the gloom like smoke, her laughter lingering in the air behind her, a taunt, a dare. Kieran followed. His every step was a silent threat, muscles coiled beneath his skin, the beast inside him snarling at the game she played. She wanted him to chase, fine, but she wouldn't like how it ended. She led him through twisting alleys, past crumbling brick and rusted iron, always just out of reach. The hem of her dress brushed the ground, black as a raven's wing, and the scent of her, cold jasmine and something darker, something alive, wrapped around him like chains. The abandoned church loomed before them, its spire clawing at the storm-heavy sky. Lightning flickered, painting the shattered stained glass in jagged bursts of blue and gold. Inside, the air smelled of damp stone and old incense, and something darker, something alive. Seraphina glided up the crumbling steps, her dress whispering against the broken marble. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She could feel Kieran behind her, his presence like a furnace at her back, his breath hot against the nape of her neck. "This is a bad idea," he rumbled. She smiled. "All the best ones are." The heavy oak doors groaned as she pushed them open. Inside, the shadows clung thick as cobwebs. Candles flickered in rusted holders, their flames casting long, trembling fingers across the walls. And at the far end of the nave, seated atop the altar like a king on a throne of bones, was him. Valentine. His smile was a knife slash in the dark. Serafina, you brought a dog. Kieran's growl shook the dust from the rafters. She ignored it, stepping forward. We need your help. Valentine's laughter was a dry, rustling sound. Oh, and why would I give it? Because I'll make it worth your while. His gaze slid over her, slow, considering. Then he sighed. Tempting. But no. Kieran moved before she could stop him. One moment he was at her back. The next, he had Valentine by the throat, slamming him against the altar hard enough to crack the stone. Listen, bloodsucker, he snarled. We're not asking. Valentine didn't struggle, didn't even blink. He just smiled wider. Oh, I like this one. Serafina rolled her eyes. Children, please. She flicked her wrist, and Kieran was yanked back by an invisible force, his boots skidding across the floor. He shot her a glare, but she ignored it, stepping between them. Here's the deal. You give us the location of the obsidian dagger, and I'll give you this. From the folds of her dress, she produced a small vial. Inside, a single drop of liquid swirled, black as midnight, shimmering like crushed stars. Valentine's breath caught. It's that. Werewolf venom, she confirmed. Pure, undiluted. Harvested under a blood moon, she tilted the vial, watching the way his eyes tracked it. Enough to kill an elder, or make one very powerful. Silence. Then, the dagger is in the catacombs beneath the Crimson Spire, Valentin said, his voice hushed. But you won't get past the Guardians. Kieran cracked his knuckles. Let us worry about that. Valentin took the vial, his fingers trembling. One more thing. His gaze locked on Kieran. The venom. Whose is it? Serafina smiled sweetly. His. Kieran went very still. Valentin laughed. Oh, this I have to see. Outside, the storm broke. Rain lashed the broken windows as Serafina turned to leave, Kieran on her heels. You stole my blood, he said low. Dangerous. She didn't stop walking, just a drop. He grabbed her arm, spinning her to face him. His eyes burned gold in the dark, his teeth bared. Why? Lightning flashed. In its afterimage, she saw the hunger in his gaze, not just anger, but something deeper, something hungry. Her pulse stuttered. Because, she murmured, stepping closer, until her lips nearly brushed his, I wanted to know if you tasted as good as you smelled. His grip tightened. Then, with a sound like a snarl and a sigh, he released her. You're playing with fire, vampire. She grinned, all fangs. Good thing you're flammable. The rain swallowed them both as they stepped into the night, the hunt far from over. And somewhere, deep in the dark, the dagger waited. The crimson spire rose from the earth like a jagged fang, its obsidian surface swallowing the moonlight. Beneath it, the catacombs waited, a labyrinth of bones and whispers. The air here was thick with the scent of old death, of things that should have stayed buried. Serafina's heels clicked against the stone steps as she descended, the hem of her dress trailing through centuries of dust. Beside her, Kieran moved like a living shadow, his muscles taut, his golden eyes scanning the dark. The wound on his arm, where she'd taken his blood, had healed, but the memory of its taste still lingered on her tongue, like lightning and wild things. You're quiet, she murmured. He didn't look at her. Thinking. About. How much I hate crypts. She laughed, the sound echoing off the walls. Afraid of ghosts, wolf? His gaze cut to her, sharp as a blade. No, just what lives in them. As if summoned, the first guardian emerged from the dark. It was a thing of sign when bone, its hollow eyes burning with witchfire, its jaw unhinged, releasing a sound that wasn't a scream, wasn't a growl, but something in between. Kieran bared his teeth. Told you. Then the thing lunged. Serafina moved like water, slipping past its grasping claws, her own fingers twisting in the air. Shadows lashed out, wrapping around the creature's limbs, holding it fast. Hurry, she hissed. Kieran didn't need telling. He tore into the guardian like a storm-given flesh, his claws rending bone, his snarls shaking dust from the ceiling. It shattered beneath his hands, collapsing into a pile of ash and teeth. But more were coming. She could hear them now, the skitter of bone on stone, the wet drag of fleshless throats. Dozens. Hundreds. Kieran's back pressed against hers, his breath hot on her neck. Got a plan. She smiled. Always. Her hands wove through the air, her voice dropping to a whisper. The shadows at their feet twisted, rising like living things, forming a wall of writhing darkness between them and the horde. Run, she said. They ran. The catacombs blurred around them, the guardian's shrieks close behind. Kieran's hand closed around her wrist, yanking her around corners, through archways, his grip bruising. She could feel his pulse through his skin, wild, untamed. Alive. Then, a dead end. The wall before them was carved with ancient runes, the dagger embedded at its center, its blade blacker than the void. But between them and it stood the last guardian. This one was different. It wore the remnants of a king's robes, its skeletal fingers clutching the rusted crown. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of tombs slamming shut. Turn back. Kieran stepped forward. Not happening. The guardian's laugh was a dry rattle. Then die. It moved faster than anything so old should. One moment it was across the chamber. The next, its bony fingers were around Kieran's throat, lifting him off the ground. Seraphina's blood went cold. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. She struck. Her fangs sank into the creature's wrist, drinking deep of whatever foul magic animated it. The taste was rotten wrong, but she didn't stop. Couldn't. The guardian shrieked, dropping Kieran, its form writhing as her venom tore through it. It collapsed, crumbling to dust at her feet. Silence. Then, Seraphina. Kieran's voice was rough, his hands gripping her shoulders, turning her to face him. His eyes were wide, his lips parted. You why? She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, her stomach churning. You owed me a debt. Now we're even. His grip tightened. That's not why. The air between them thrummed. She could feel his heartbeat where their bodies pressed together, could see the way his gaze dropped to her lips. The hunger in his eyes wasn't just fury, wasn't just gratitude. It was something more. Then, without warning, he moved. His mouth crashed against hers, hot and desperate, his fingers tangling in her hair. She gasped against his lips, her own hands clutching at his shoulders, pulling him closer. It wasn't gentle, wasn't sweet. It was fire. His teeth grazed her bottom lip, drawing a single drop of blood. He licked it away with a growl that vibrated through her bones. Mine, he breathed. She laughed, breathless. Keep telling yourself that, wolf. His answering snarl was swallowed by another kiss, deeper this time, hungrier. The world outside this moment ceased to exist. Then, a sound. The dagger. It had moved. They broke apart, turning as one. The blade now lay at their feet, its surface gleaming with something that wasn't light. Seraphina exhaled. Well, that was easy. Kieran's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with hers. Nothing about you is easy. She squeezed back, just once. Then they stepped into the dark together. Dawn bulled across the sky in streaks of violet and gold, but the safe house was anything but safe. Seraphina knew something was wrong the moment they crossed the threshold. The air was too still. The scent of bergamot and old parchment, her own, had been overwritten by something cloying, something familiar. Lilies and grave dirt. Lysandra. She barely had time to hiss a warning before the shadows moved. Silver chains lashed out from the darkness, wrapping around Kieran's arms, his throat, yanking him off his feet. He roared, the sound shaking the walls, his muscles straining against the bonds. But the metal held. Seraphina spun, fangs bared, only to freeze as a blade pressed against her spine. Hello, sister. Lysandra's voice was honey poured over poison. Miss me? The other vampire stepped into the light, her golden curls gleaming, her smile a razor's edge. Behind her, more figures emerged from the dark. Vampires in long coats, their eyes cold, their hands full of steel and spite. The Crimson Court. Seraphina's heart turned to ice. What do you want? Lysandra asked. Straight to business. No, how have you been? No lovely weather for a betrayal. She flicked a glance at Kieran, still thrashing in his chains. Though I suppose you've been distracted. Kieran snarled, his eyes burning. Let her go. Oh, he speaks. Lysandra clapped her hands. How adorable. She leaned in, her breath cold against Seraphina's cheek. Father's very disappointed in you, consorting with animals. Her gaze dropped to Seraphina's lips, still slightly swollen from Kieran's kisses. Though I suppose he tastes as good as he looks. Seraphina spat in her face. Lysandra recoiled, wiping her cheek with a snarl. Then she backhanded Seraphina hard enough to send her crashing into the wall. Kieran exploded. The chains snapped like twigs as he shifted, his body twisting, expanding, fur erupting from his skin. The werewolf that stood in his place was monstrous, his muzzle dripping saliva, his claws scoring deep gouges in the floor. The vampires hesitated. Lysandra didn't. She raised a hand, and the dagger at her belt, their dagger, the one they'd nearly died for, glowed with sickly green light. Kieran howled as the magic hit him, forcing him back into human form, his body convulsing. No, Seraphina lunged, but hands caught her, yanking her back. Lysandra sighed. Really, Sarah? Did you think we wouldn't prepare? She crouched beside Kieran, her fingers trailing through his hair. Such a pretty beast. Shame he'll be dead by moonrise. Seraphina's vision went red. Touch him again and I'll peel the skin from your bones. Lysandra laughed. Promises, promises. She stood, brushing imaginary dust from her skirts. Take them. The vampires moved in. Seraphina fought like a demon, her fists and fangs finding flesh, but there were too many. A blow to her temple sent her reeling. Another to her ribs stole her breath. She tasted blood, her own, as they dragged her to her knees beside Kieran. His hand found hers in the chaos, his grip crushing. Look at me, he growled. She did. His eyes were gold even in human form, his voice rough but steady. Remember what I told you. This isn't over. Then the world went black as a hood was yanked over her head. The last thing she heard was Kieran's roar and Lysandra's laughter, fading into the dark. Cold iron bit into Seraphina's wrists as she struggled against her chains. The dungeon walls wept with condensation, the air thick with the stench of mildew and old blood. Somewhere in the dark, water dripped, a slow, torturous rhythm counting down the seconds until dawn, until death. Lysandra had made sure of that. The cursed dagger lay on a velvet cushion just beyond Seraphina's reach, its blade pulsing with venomous green light. Kieran's venom, her doing. The irony tasted bitter on her tongue. A groan shattered the silence. Still alive, wolf, she whispered. His lips curled, though it might have been a grimace. Disappointed? Terribly. Her chains clinked as she strained toward him. You look like hell. Feel worse. His golden eyes flicked to the door, then back to her. They took my blood again. Her stomach twisted. How much? Enough. His voice dropped to a growl. They're making more weapons. Of course they were. The Crimson Court had always been thorough. First, they would bleed Kieran dry. Then, they would turn his own power against his kind, against her. Seraphina closed her eyes. She had spent centuries playing games, dancing on the edge of danger. But this was different. This was Kieran. His fingers twitched toward her, the chains rattling. Sarah. She hated how her name sounded in his mouth, rough and tender all at once. Don't. We're getting out of here. How? She laughed hollow. Even you can't break those chains. Not yet. His gaze burned into hers. But the moon rises soon. Her breath caught. The full moon, when Kieran's power would be at its peak, when the beast inside him would be unstoppable. If he lived that long. A key turned in the lock. Seraphina went still as Lysandra swept in, her gown trailing over the filthy stones like a queen visiting peasants. All bonding? She clasped her hands. How sweet. Kieran bared his teeth. Come closer. I'll show you sweet. Lysandra ignored him, circling Seraphina instead. Father's decided your fate. Her nails trace Seraphina's jaw. You'll watch your pet die. Then you'll marry Vasily, and then her smile turned vicious. Well, you've always been good at playing with knives. Perhaps you'll get to meet yours. Seraphina's blood ran cold. Vasily was a monster among monsters, a vampire who collected wives like trophies and discarded them just as easily. Lysandra leaned in, her whisper a venomous caress. Unless, of course, you bay. For a heartbeat, Seraphina considered it. Considered sinking to her knees, swallowing her pride, trading her freedom for Kieran's life. Then she met his eyes. Never. She headbutted Lysandra with a snarl. The other vampire stumbled back, clutching her nose, blood seeping between her fingers. You bitch. Seraphina grinned, all fangs. Missed you too. Lysandra's scream brought the guards running. Take him to the courtyard. Now. Hands grabbed Kieran, dragging him toward the door. He fought, his muscles straining, his eyes locked on Seraphina. I'll come for you, he growled. She believed him. Then he was gone and Lysandra was back, her face a mask of fury. You'll regret that. Seraphina smiled. Worth it. A fist connected with her temple, and the world went black. When she woke, she was kneeling in the courtyard, the first light of dawn staining the sky. Before her stood a pyre, Kieran chained at its center. His skin was pale, his body trembling, but his eyes were wild, defiant. The crimson court surrounded them, their faces hungry. Lysandra stepped forward, lifting the cursed dagger. Any last words, beast? Kieran's gaze found Seraphina's. His lips moved, silent. Trust me. Then the sun crested the horizon, and the moon, full and heavy, still hung in the sky. The eclipse had begun. Kieran threw back his head and howled. The sound shook the earth, the chains shattering as his body twisted, expanded, fur erupting from his skin. The werewolf that emerged was no mere beast. It was a force of nature, its golden eyes blazing, its fangs dripping. Lysandra stumbled back. Kill it. Arrows flew. Swords flashed. None of it mattered. Kieran tore through the vampires like paper, his claws painting the courtyard red. Seraphina yanked free of her bonds, catching a fallen blade, her laughter sharp as steel. Miss me, she purred, slicing through a guard's throat. Kieran's answering snarl was all the reply she needed. Together, they moved like death itself, a whirlwind of fangs and fury. When the last vampire fell, Kieran shifted back, his human hands catching Seraphina's face. You're hurt, he rasped, thumbing the blood from her lip. She leaned into his touch. You're late. His laugh was a rough, warm thing. Then his mouth found hers, the kiss tasting of blood and promises. Somewhere, a bell tolled. The hunt wasn't over. But for now, they ran.